sharp 5 really gets the jazz going. Hello everybody, my name is Onda, and today we are taking a look at this brand new Arab Strap album, As Days Get Dark. Let's go. So there are quite a few different avenues I use for discovering new music. There are critics I like, there are recommendations from friends, sometimes I just browse Spotify. But I find that the most consistent way of finding weird stuff that I never would have listened before is just to Google new album releases and go down the Metacritic list and just see what's come out that day. And that was how I found this album in particular. Arab Strap wasn't a band I had had any history with, I hadn't even heard of them before. So imagine my shock when I was going through the albums just being like, meh, mediocre, whatever, and I found this little gem. I turned it on and admittedly didn't really know what to think. It was an electronic hip-hoppy style beat with some folk influences. I figured that because of the name something vaguely Arabic would appear at some point, but to my surprise what came up instead was a sultry Scottish voice saying this low-hummed, slow-delivered poetry at me. And you know, I think that that is the best way to sum up this album, right from the get-go. It has sick-ass beats and sick-ass poetry, where most of the music isn't really connected to the lyrics much, it's just cool, weird shit for the poet, that is their vocalist, to do his riffing over. And I have to say that it is pretty fucking fantastic in both avenues. I think that the way I'm going to go about covering this isn't by talking it in a kind of holistic way like I do with most of my things, starting at the bottom and then building up into some wider narrative of what I thought is the album. Instead, for this video, I'm going to split it into two halves. First talking about the beats, and then talking about the lyrics and the poetry side of it. Because these are really two worlds that just so happen to be on the same album. So let's start with the vocals. There is some singing, and it does generally follow a verse-chorus structure. But my god, there is something unique to this poetry, and I'm not just calling it that the same way pretentious critics go, oh, Radiohead and their poetry. It has a Mark Kozelek-esque winding nature to it, and the songs are pretty diverse in what they offer. Some of them have scarcely any story. A song like Sleeper is just a man reflecting on his life while on a train, and we don't even learn that much about him. The most eventful thing that happens is he gets up, goes to a bar, then sits back down again. Or how about Tears on Tour, where the entire plot of the song is, there is a man who cries a lot, but tonight, he's not crying. That is the entire premise of the song, but it's delivered in such a deliciously winding and specific way, digging into all the minuscule details of our lives. There's a folkish timelessness to it, to the point where it all feels like it's some god staring down on us and judging us. But at the same time, there's an explicitly contemporary nature to it, mirrored by the album cover showing some ancient art on a computer screen. It reminds me of an early AJJ in that matter, the way that it simultaneously infuses this ancient, Tolkien-esque old folk nature and this very new, modern feeling of the way that the modern world affects our lives with references to computers and winding down data. To get a feel for it, let me read you a passage. What would you call the opposite of a comedian? Whatever it is, that's what I want it to be. I dreamed of touring the country, playing small gigs in intimate venues, sitting on a stage in a leather wingback armchair, telling tales of woe. The audience would join in a long collective cry. We would weep together as one. I even planned some merchandise, 100% cotton souvenir handkerchiefs embroidered with the tour dates, available in the foyer after the show. You see what I mean? There is modern references of comedians and tour dates, but also this like ancient sadness that's like woven into the lyrics. But not all the tracks are this fiendishly subtle in their nature. There are some tracks that feel more like epic adventures. Take The Tale of the Urban Fox, which really does feel Tolkien-esque in the way that it describes these people going from place to place trying to find a home as their civilization's wiped out, with the obvious allegories to modern day immigration. This simultaneous ability to describe basically nothing but do it in such an emotive way, as well as this ability to craft these wider stories on the same album that makes these lyrics so amazing to me. But let's be honest, these would be nothing without their excellent execution. That gorgeous, sultry Scottish accent saying all of these lyrics is really what makes it. Step aside, Corpse Husband, I know what my favourite voice is. And the answer is Fexot, but this does come in a close second. I had initially planned to read you out more passages, even going through some of the stories and what they mean to me, but I feel like I would be doing you a disservice if I spoiled this album. That's right, this is one of those albums that unironically comes with a spoiler warning when I'm doing the review of it. I feel like one of the best things about this album is discovering for yourself, sitting there and listening to these stories play out, because some of them have fiendishly clever twist endings, and they evolve over time to the point where when you're in the end and the orchestra is crescendoing while they're talking about the final moments of someone's life, it is one of the most powerful musical experiences that I've had all year. Speaking of orchestras, I think that's the best segue we're going to get into the musical side of this album. So if you thought the poetry was good, the musical side of it is not slacking whatsoever. It is super musically varied in everything it tries to achieve. In the modern day, I've kind of grown tired of reviewers saying, oh, this album is able to combine all these different genres, because kind of everyone is a clusterfuck of different genres now. I don't think there are many artists left that make, like, just hip-hop without at least some R&B and then some jazz and some whatever thrown in there. And so while I list off instruments, don't take this as, oh, they put a saxophone in one track. No, take this as their skilled ability to weave in all of these different sounds to this tapestry across the album, giving you so many different palettes that are so appropriately used. I think the best way to describe it is that it uses both live strings and MIDI strings. They know when to go with this, like, old, low-quality sound and when to go with this grand operatic sound. You have softly strung nylon string guitars that arpeggio in and out of these major and minor tonalities with these 4-chord loops that by the end don't feel like they're traveling back to the beginning, but like starting a new life, echoing with the lyrics perfectly. And on top of that, you have these horn sections that come in occasionally with this Amy Winehouse-esque slow rhythmic pondering forwards. They also more than a few times use Kamasi Washington or Kakegurui-esque saxophones that feel like not just Coltrane sheets of sound, but just walls of chaotic noise that could be on the end of a Swans track. And of course what started it all and what even made me want to listen to this album, the electronic and hip-hop production. And what's more, this adds to the feel of the album. The strings feel classic and timeless, where the hip-hop elements feel modern and contemporary, grounding us both in the real world where we live, as well as this fable fairy tale. This album feels quintessentially timeless in a way I can't really describe. So let's back up here a bit. We have amazing poetry, we have amazing backing that all come together for this super cool myth-like vibe with these amazing stories. Easiest 10 out of 10 I've ever given, right? Well, there are a few factors that complicate this just a smidge. I did mention this before, but I definitely played it down, and that's that he doesn't always do poetry. There are a couple points where he will sing on this album, and at times it's done very effectively. The I don't want your love, I need your love verse, where it talks about a man obsessed with this woman that starts off like a Romeo and Juliet true love, but slowly degrades as you see how ugly obsession with another person can get. But then there's the misuse of the chorus structure on something like The Fable of the Urban Fox. I love this track to death, but I want to hear more of the storyline. I want to hear more of how they go from place to place, describing these cities in gorgeous detail and how people are hostile to them wherever they go, how their species is basically wiped out to the brink of extinction. I don't care about you just singing "We will find home" for the 6th time of the track. What I'm getting at is that I want longer verses from this album. I want to stay in this weird, creepy mindset a lot of the time, not go into these choruses that, let's be honest, are sometimes pretty average. When he sticks to his poetry voice, his singing voice is slightly sacrificed, and so when his singing starts to sound like his talking voice, when he's singing, it just doesn't sound that great all the time, and it's slow and a bit monotonous. And I can handle that, but not when it's interrupting what I like. Though, having said that, not having enough of what I like is much better than having none of what I like. And an album's already got to be pretty good when I'm saying I'm addicted to it, and it just doesn't give me enough of what I need. And so, despite that admittedly pretty deeply entrenched structuring issue, I loved this album to death. I think it's great. It provides a truly special experience that I haven't had since a Daughters album, and even then, it's not as crazy and batshit as that band. It's a slow, intimate vibe that sometimes just lets you peer in on these weird people's lives. Seeing the decline of a people, or just being a fly on the wall of a broken marriage. This album truly provides an experience that is really special, and so I'm giving it a solid 9 out of 10. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that album. Guys, What did you think of this album? If you listened to it, I would love to see a comment before. We have some update videos coming pretty soon just about the direction of the channel, what is my weekly or monthly review series going to look like in a bit, what am I doing with streaming, what is my TikTok. I'm just going to be explaining everything around my schedule and what I'm doing in a video shortly, so you guys will know just what's happening. So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe. There is a bell I'm pretty sure you're supposed to press. Also make sure to comment and like, it helps me out tons with the algorithm, so if you enjoyed, I would very much appreciate that. And with that said, I think I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay sexy.